Hey Vince.
Hi, Nabil.
So today we have you for Superstars. We're going to be starting this series. You're the first person coming in. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. But our audience doesn't know you yet. So let's start off with a very simple, tell me about yourself.
A little about me. I studied piano when I was very young. I was about 11 years old, and I think I got into some trouble with some people, some kids that I used to hang around with.
Yeah.
And so my dad at the time said, "Oh, you can only learn a musical instrument. What instrument do you want to play?" And I was like, I don't know where this came from, why, but it channeled through me, and I just said piano. And, an 11-year-old boy living in North Bay, Ontario at the time should be playing hockey, and I was playing street hockey and stuff like that. Piano was not conducive to the kind of, rough and tumble kids that I hung out with. So I don't know where it came from. But I know my earliest influences were really, I grew up in an Italian family, very large family. My mother had 11 siblings, so I had like 35 cousins. So family gatherings, as you can imagine, were really crowded.
Yeah.
And after dinner, we had a couple of great uncles that would bring out the mandolins and the violins, which I actually inherited, and I think I've sent you some clips of that. But mandolin and violin, it would start out with these traditional Italian folk songs, and everybody would be singing along to this Italian stuff, and then after about 5 or 6 of those songs, out would come the guitars. And my uncles and aunts would start playing the country songs, the Western songs, and then the Beatles songs, and then the Creedence Clearwater Revival songs, and all the pop music of the day back in the 60s. So I really had a strong influence from a very young age. And I think for me, it brought out this this sort of persona that, if I'm playing an instrument or if I'm involved, it's okay to be socially engaged in song. And that it's a joyful thing. So a bit about me. I mean, I play multi-instruments. I've grown up learning all kinds of instruments. I'm still learning. My most recent endeavor is with a lap steel that I inherited from my mother. And so that is really interesting because I've discovered that lap steel guitars are not just for country and Western music. You can do a lot of blues. You can put some distortion pedal on it and bang out some hard rock and some blues. So it's a lot of fun. Apart from that, I don't know what else I can say that will tell you more about me other than...
Let's actually dive a little deeper into, you mentioned 2 things. The instruments. Walk me through your instruments. What instrument that did you learn? When did you learn it? Why did you learn it? And then, so first let's go through that.
Okay.
And then I have a follow-up.
Sweet, thank you. Well, like I said, piano was my first and foremost instrument, and I learned it at a young age. I think the first week I went to my half-hour lesson after my parents bought me the piano. I went to a lesson. The teacher told me to go out and buy Royal Conservatory grade 2 and any contemporary work that I wanted. So the second week I came back with my Royal Conservatory grade 2 book in hand to start learning, and Elton John's Benny and the Jets and The Entertainer by Scott Joplin. And so I learned those 2 songs and some classical music in my second lesson.
What was your teacher's reaction on the difference of what you brought in there?
She was shocked at first because she didn't realize. I think she was cautious about the level. I mean, learning stride piano on your second lesson is not something that I think most kids are capable of doing. However, I had practiced probably 3 hours a day since my first lesson, and I already memorized the songs that she'd given me the first time and a few other ones. But it was a shock to her that, and she figured I wasn't going to be able to do it. But she ran through left hand, right hand, and by the third lesson, I was pretty much getting it, both of those songs. So, and so I was one of those kids that, my mother would have to tell me get off the piano, you're going to be late for school. And I'd have to get up and get to school. And I would come home and I'd hear one of my brothers, I'd be coming home from grade 6, grade 7, from school. 2 blocks away, I'd hear my brother playing his drums in his bedroom. He had his headphones on, his record player like this going. and I'd come home and I'd be jealous because he'd have skipped school and spent half the afternoon playing his instrument. So I wanted to do that too. Anyways, so that's the piano. I started with that. It's my first and foremost, and to this day, I'm still learning and getting better at it. Probably in I want to say about 84, 85, I was rooming with a bunch of jazz musicians, and I used to jam with those guys. I started to learn some good jazz music and progressions and such. That's when I got into saxophone. So I took a few lessons from Harold. Harold Timmermans is his name, and he and I hung out for a bit, and I learned tenor. And I've been playing that one for a long time. But I got to a point where I was okay. I thought I was pretty good. Most people said, "Oh, you're really good." Okay, great. Well, doing okay. 2 years ago, I took a lesson from a professional and brought me from here to here. And I've been practicing almost on a daily basis. I run scales and I run exercises. And I play in a garage band with a bunch of guys and on Wednesday nights. And they have remarked that they've seen a noticeable improvement in the year and a half, 2 years that I've been, 3 years with them, but 2 years since I took the additional lesson. So you're never too old to learn and grow, right? So that's those are my two main instruments. But like I said, mandolin and violin. I never really picked up the violin so much, but the mandolin I do play and I do some recording with. I inherited the lap steel and a banjo from my mother, and I've done some recordings. I'd say I'm proficient on banjo, and I'm getting there on lap steel. But I love the idea of having a lot of tools in my kit. And it also opens the door for a lot of other influences. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard Steve Martin play banjo. The guy's phenomenal. He's really good. He's been around playing for quite some time. But lap steel, I mean, there's, today, this day and age on YouTube, there's so much free information and tutorials on YouTube. It's really exciting to be learning more.
So we're started diving into influences now. So tell me, what has influenced you over a period of time? How has it gone for you from like that piano, that Elton John era to today? What are you listening to today, and what's been the progression, and how is it related to the instruments that you've been playing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, my biggest influence obviously being the upbringing and hanging out with the expanded family at these gatherings. But when I was about 9 years old, I have an uncle that was in a band at the time, and he had a day job like most of us and worked in a band at night. But he had me with a record player like this. I was manning the record player, and he was dictating, so he was writing the notes. So the words, so we were lifting words from American Pie, from Take Me Home, Country Roads, from some Beatles songs. And so at a very young age, I was getting familiar with the storytelling of some of these old songwriters back in the day. And that really inspired me to play more and learn more. I guess from there, I kind of went into the first album that I really got familiar with was Elton John. It's called Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. Learned every song note for note. Then the greatest hits of Elton John. Learned every song note for note on the piano. Then I got familiar with Joe Cocker, Mad Dogs and Englishmen, double album. And the fellow that pulled that together, Leon Russell, he was a big influence of mine. And I think that album, Mad Dogs and Englishmen, fantastic album. Even to this day, it influences a lot of people. So it kind of opened my mind to more of the heavy rock or the different genres that they played. A little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll, and whatnot. Going through high school, it was Zeppelin, Aerosmith, Supertramp, all the usual suspects from back in the 80s. And then later on, getting into like Bowie, Police, Zappa, and some of these more, and then Sting. So Police, when Sting left Police, I followed him and really got involved and really got invested in the more what's the word I'm looking for, sophisticated. More sophisticated sound, more sophisticated chords, more sophisticated timings, like 7/8 and 7/4 timing. which I've composed a lot around as well. And so, through the 90s, that was kind of my era and or my genre of choice. And at the same time, following a lot of jazz players. So, I mean, the obvious Miles Davis and John Coltrane, and you name it. There's dozens of them. And then up until today, so I have the luxury, or I should say that I've had the opportunity to see probably over 80 or 100 concerts. Mostly because my wife had access to those passes at one point. So we used to take her clients to concerts and et cetera. So I've seen so many different artists, and I've really been grateful to see that. To go to these concerts to see in person, Steely Dan, for instance, like those guys, unbelievable. I've seen Seal a number of times, seen Sting many times. Never seen Billy Joel, oddly enough, but as much as he was an influence of mine back in the day as well. And I think I've only seen Elton once. But yeah, later on, more Ray Charles, Sting, Peter Gabriel, and then lots of jazz, So I don't know if that covers it. Today I'm kind of like I'm listening to all types of music, but I'm mostly influenced by jazz because I tend to lean towards that more sophisticated sound. And by jazz, I don't mean the avant-garde crazy stuff. I mean more traditional blues-based and even some country-based jazz. Managed to get down to Nashville for the first time last year. Really eye-opening, man. I tell you, we'll talk more about that sometime as well.